This is Seeing Red, now in our 15th season of bringing you the best in independent Red Bulls news and opinion. Now, here are your hosts, Mark Fishkin and Joe Goldstein.
Folks, we've reached Decision Day, the last day of the MLS regular season, which is a perfect time to celebrate by liking and subscribing to the show if you're watching on YouTube. I'm here with birthday boy Daniel Rebane. Happy birthday, Dan.
Hey man, thank you very much. Another year around the sun has come and gone. And we'll see what 2025 has for me. And I appreciate all the wishes from everybody that's texted me, hit me up on IG and all that. So love you all. And, another year. Here we go.
Another year. Here we go. Thank you so much for sharing some of your birthday with us. That's awesome. Tonight on Seeing Red, we're going to take a look at the Columbus Crew. New York may be playing Columbus on Saturday for the first of 4 straight matches against this team. They're the MLS Cup champs. They're the League's Cup champs. We'll preview what we'll see on Decision Day. We have a special guest interview, as we do, and then we'll get to emails. Dan, it's been both a fast and slow season. Not the trajectory that the Red Bulls would have wanted. Last year at this time, it was the slow start, the coaching change, the furious run to the line on Decision Day that they clinched playoffs. This year, the work in the first half of the season to get New York in position to clinch, which they did, and now we await what will be a playoff series against one of the 2 Ohio teams. If it's Cincinnati, it'll be the 3rd straight year these teams meet in the playoffs. When you go back and think about what this year has meant to you for Red Bulls, and by no means is this a season, autopsy, but nevertheless, what have you seen? What are you going to take away?
I know a lot of people are going to look back on this year and be like, it's another one of those years for Red Bull. But I feel like, I overall take positives out of this year, because I know, remember coming into this year, there was a lot of negative talk about, the coach, them not spending again. Obviously they brought in Emil Forsberg, but that was the only, addition to this team basically. And, a lot of people had this team dead in the play, they weren't going to make the playoffs.
Right.
They weren't going to do anything. And, obviously they get off to that fast start heading into a Leagues Cup, and they already had 41 points, I believe, 41 or 43. And then that's kind of where the season kind of, took a turn. But I feel like, what they were doing before the Emil Forsberg injury, June 1st, they looked really good. They were playing really good, soccer. Unfortunate that injuries have hit this team again. But I feel like overall I take positives out of this, that I kind of believe in the coach going forward. And I feel like it's all on the front office to, go out and spend. I feel like we've said that for a couple of years now, but, I feel like they got the right coach in place, and, it's just, do they believe in him, and are they going to give him the weapons to, succeed going forward?
I think a lot of there was a lot of negative talk around Schwartz's comments saying, we were not to go and win the league in the first year. And I think a lot of fans took that the wrong way. I think the message was to Sandro, don't feel pressure to win this first year. Just get yourself acclimated and do as well as you can. And, for me, I'll just think back to the comments that Dylan Nealis said a couple of weeks ago, where he said that the team had gotten complacent sitting in 4th place for the vast majority of the season.
Yep.
And you kind of hate to see that, because, we obviously all want this team to continue pushing. There will be a playoff game at Red Bull Arena this year. And to be clear, the holding 4th would have allowed them to have home field hosting the first and possibly a 3rd game at Red Bull Arena in MLS playoffs first round. But it's not as if New York is going to be necessarily favored in their playoff series, regardless of who they play. And so I think for the rest of the season, which is one game and then at least two more, they're going to have to, I think, illustrate to not just themselves, but also to the fan base that they really care and they're not complacent and they're willing to do whatever it takes to push through. So, I mean, I put out on the show socials, who would you rather face, Columbus or Cincinnati? It was 100% Cincinnati, which to the surprise of no one, Columbus has been an absolute juggernaut for 2 seasons on. What do you think about which team New York should face? And while we talk about this, I'll just kind of pop up the scenarios on the screen right now.
Well, obviously, to face Cincinnati for a third straight year, that would be great to see just for the rivalry's sakes. Correct me if I'm wrong. We beat Columbus in Columbus this year, or no?
No, they drilled us 3-0.
Okay,
I'll get into that.
So we beat Cincinnati on the road.
Yes.
This year. Okay. So yeah, I think it's pretty obvious who we'd want to play is Cincinnati. For whatever reason, when we go to Cincinnati, we have that confidence. Maybe it's because we had Frankie Amaya, maybe that's gone now.
Yeah.
But for whatever reason, when we go to Cincinnati, they just have the confidence to go out there and get a result. Maybe they could do that in game 1 this year, get to penalties and maybe steal one coming home. But yeah. I think everybody wants to play Cincinnati because I think a Columbus matchup that ends very quickly.
Yeah. And here are the scenarios. If you're watching on YouTube, if New York doesn't beat Columbus, well, congratulations, Red Bulls. You've earned a playoff matchup with Columbus. Well done. If the Red Bulls win and Charlotte beats DC on decision day, well, too bad. New York faces Columbus once again. The only way New York can climb to 6th on the Eastern table and take on FC Cincinnati is if New York is able to win on Saturday evening, and then DC is able to take points away from Charlotte. So if you want to go ahead and root for DC United, then first time ever, then please go ahead and do that. But let's get into the Red Bulls and Columbus preview officially Saturday night at 6:00, not 7:30. New York hosts Columbus on decision day. They want to be the first of, as I said, at least 3 consecutive games against the Crew. Columbus is absolutely the class of the league, and that's not taking anything away from Inter Miami, who won the Shield. But this is a team that is the reigning MLS Cup holder and the league's cup holder, and made it to the final of the CONCACAF Champions Cup, and played in the Campeones Cup. So they did not win that game. So this is a team that will not be phased by whatever the Red Bulls throw at them. And a look here at their season stats just would illustrate that. 18-6-9 for 63 points, second in the East. And that's, keep in mind, playing to the League's Cup final and winning it and making it to the CONCACAF Champions Cup final along the way. They've scored 69 goals in 33 games.
Crazy.
Youch. They've only conceded 38 times behind young goalkeeper Patrick Schulte, who has worked his way into the U.S. national team discussion. He was he was on the Olympic team as well. 8-3-5 away from Lower.com Field. That's only 3 losses on the road in MLS this year. That's the 3rd best record in the East. They're tied for 2nd in the East in goals per game. Only Miami has scored more. They're tied for 3rd in goals conceded per game with only 1.2. They're tied with Houston. Only Charlotte and Seattle have conceded fewer. The Red Bulls are 6th in this category. They are, in addition, are 2nd in MLS in possession, which I think is really important as we all talk about the idea that New York perhaps a little more comfortable without possession. Columbus is very comfortable with possession, and they use that possession to carve teams up and generate quality scoring chances. In addition, they're 2nd in MLS in clean sheets with 12 on the season. We played this team really early in the year, and since then there have been a decent amount of changes. American Phil Quinton was traded to RSL. Aidan Morris, the talented homegrown international midfielder, headed to England to sign for Middlesbrough. Colombian winger Marino Hinestrosa was loaned out to Atlético Nacional, former club of Juan Pablo Angel. Will Sands was sent to New England in the trade that saw DeJuan Jones come to Columbus, and what a terrific acquisition by the folks in the front office there. I mean, DeJuan Jones is a U.S. men's national team bench player at the moment. They signed French midfielder Dylan Chambos from Saint-Etienne. American number 10, Az Jackson, came to the club from St. Louis. Marcelo Herrera came from River Plate, the Argentine fullback. And a backup goalkeeper, Abraham Romero, was traded from LAFC. So when you think about this team, beautiful soccer and beautiful results. Since the arrival of Wilfred Nancy in 2022, Columbus has played some of the best, most attractive soccer in MLS. They're collecting trophies. They look like the best team in North America. They stormed their way to MLS Cup last year, and they would have, it can be argued that they would have won the Shield for the second straight year had it not been their deep run in the CONCACAF Champions Cup, which forced them to reschedule matches where they would have been on international break, meaning some of their key starters and players were missing during the league. Not only did Columbus win MLS Cup, they won the Leagues Cup, taking down LAFC 3-1. No one in this league is playing better soccer than Columbus, not even Messi and Inter Miami. And that showed when they beat an in-form Red Bulls to a pulp 3-0. And in that match, New York was very, very clear about they just got played off the field. Cucho for MVP. Columbus probably has the best roster in MLS. There could be no doubt that one man has stolen the show since he signed from Watford in the summer of 22. Cucho has been an absolute star for Columbus with 58 goals and 24 assists in 91 appearances in all competitions. Wow. This year, 19-9 in 26 MLS appearances. And, if not for perhaps Leo Messi's inability to have his team do poorly with him in the lineup rather than not, I think Cucho can absolutely challenge him for MVP. The big question for Saturday is whether or not Columbus will rotate their squad, right? There's the notion of not showing the Red Bulls everything they have, but to be frank, I don't think Columbus cares one bit about what the Red Bulls see, because they will be very confident in their ability to take down New York in a 2-game series. So the question is, can they get healthy? Maybe we see Cucho or Darlington Nagbe, DeJuan Jones play a half. While Columbus has a lot of strength and depth, they could afford to rotate for a game like this. We'll see if they do. They're 3-1-1 in their last 5. Here's a little bit of the history. It's, of course, an old school 96er. And in their last 5, before we get here, Columbus has wins over Orlando and Philadelphia and New England. Their only loss was to Miami in the game that clinched Inter the Shield and the 2-2 draw at DC. It's the 93rd time these teams have met. The Red Bulls trail by a few games, 42, 37, and 13. All-time Columbus leads. Obviously, the last time they met, way back in March, early in the season, New York was showing some flashes of what they would do in the first half of the year, and Columbus said, no, not so fast, my friend. Not in our house. The Red Bulls at home all-time versus Columbus, 22, 14, and 4. The home team is unbeaten in the last 5 meetings in this series, back to 2019. New York, the last time these teams played at Red Bull Arena, it was March of last year. Just cold thinking about it, where Luquinhas and Dante Van Zier had goals after the team went down 1-0 on a goal by Matan. BWP leads all goal scorers all time with 8. Nealis, Tolkien, Manuel, and Dante Van Zier each have a goal. And here is what could be. Here is what could be. The lineup: Patrick Schulte with 11 clean sheets out of 37 games played. This is a team that plays a 3-4-2-1 when in possession and a 5-2-2-1 when out of possession. The backs and wing backs, DeJuan Jones, 3 and 3. That includes scoring with New England. Malte Amundsen, former NYCFC, with a goal and 2 assists. Rudy Camacho from France with a goal and assist. Evgen Sherbenko, a Ukrainian, one of the 3 center backs for Columbus. Mo Farsi, very dangerous from the right back position, 4 goals and 5 assists. Matan, a 6, 5 and 5. Darlington Nabby doesn't get on the score sheet often. He just absolutely runs the total attack.
Just a dog.
All time MLS, should be in the U.S. Soccer Hall of Fame by the time he's done. Christian Ramirez, 9 and 7. Cucho Hernandez, folks, has 25 goals and 12 assists in all competitions. And oh, by the way, Diego Rossi on the left only has 21 goals and 7 assists.
Yeah, only.
My word. So the question for you, you're Sandra Schwartz, Dan. It's your birthday. You're Sandra Schwartz. What can you do? Consider you're not going to have Dylan Nealis, who's out with red cards after the Atlanta game. Kyle Duncan's on the bench. What to do here? How do you send a message to this team, Columbus, with the understanding that you may play them twice and maybe 3 more times in succession?
I think you got to just tell the boys, like, this is the team that you're probably going to play in the playoffs. And I think you have to put it on them to send a message. A coach could do, so much. I think it's on the players to go out there and show that, they're ready for a war, basically. They're ready to make this a 3-game series if they can get it there. And, it's going to be difficult. We're talking about Columbus, reigning MLS champs, everything, all these accolades, Cucho Hernandez, Diego Rossi, all these players, Darlington Nagbe, like, this is probably one of the toughest teams like this Red Bull team will ever face. And I think it's just on the players to, be up for the challenge. So we'll see what they do.
The one solace I have going into this match for New York is that Columbus has literally nothing to play for. They can't reach. They can't catch Miami for the top spot. They can't be caught by Cincinnati behind them. So this is literally a meaningless match for Columbus, other than you can make the argument probing what New York will do against them should they meet starting next week in the MLS Cup playoffs. And so I would like to think that Columbus will play this kind of as a club friendly.
Hopefully.
With the understanding that if you're New York, as you said, Dan, you've got to send a message, and that message can be sent with physical play, not reckless play, but physical biting play. Like, hey, if we're going to see you again next week, it's not going to be a cakewalk for you.
Yeah.
And there is obviously a talent mismatch between these two teams.
Mismatch, yeah.
I mean, one team is playing with an air of confidence. The other team is looking to find positive form that saw them go down in Atlanta and give away points to lesser teams all season long.
Yep.
Well, this is one of those teams that isn't lesser, it's greater. We saw this team play very well against Miami, the Red Bulls. We saw it for three out of 4 halves. We saw this team beat number 3 squad Cincinnati twice this year. We saw this team beat Orlando, the number 4 team this year. So New York traditionally has gotten up for games like this. The lone exception to that was when they played Columbus earlier in this year. But honestly, that was so early in the season before I think we really knew what this New York team had.
Yeah.
I mean, it's such a unique situation, right? Where it's decision day, but it doesn't mean anything to your opponent. And if you play well and you get some help, you can avoid this team. And you can then take on a Cincinnati team that, as you rightly said, Dan, that they'll be very happy to face.
Yeah, I think they just have to go into this game having the mindset that they are going to play Columbus. And then if things change, they change. But, I think, you have to focus on, like, identifying Columbus as the enemy. You're going to be playing them 4 times. That's got to be the expectation, that you're going to be playing them 4 times in the next, week and a half. And, if I was in their position, I'd be taking that to heart. I'd be like, they're gonna think that this is gonna be an easy cakewalk, 2-0, and they move on. And I think Red Bull got to go show them that this isn't gonna be easy, and they gotta use their press, be physical with them. The defenders just got to be all over Cucho if he plays. Just say, you're going to have to work for this. We're not going to give you easy goals. And then on the other hand, you're going to need Dante and Emil Forsberg to create some goals. At least get something positive offensively in this game, even if it's like a 1-0 win. Something, just get a goal, get some momentum going into the playoffs, and then go from there. And we'll see what happens. Obviously, this is going to be the toughest matchup they'll probably even face in the playoffs. Even if they get by like Columbus, this might be the toughest opponent they face all playoffs. So it's going to be an interesting one. And, it's game 1 of 4. So
let's go.
Yeah.
New York finished the season. They haven't finished the season yet. New York is 7-2-7 at home. Right. They this year they've proven very, very difficult to beat. Their only losses to Philadelphia and NYC. Unfortunately, those have both come in the last 3 home games. So I think New York really has to show up and say, not in my house.
Yep.
And perhaps if it is Columbus, then even just extending them to a 3rd game in a playoff series is a building block for 2025. So you've got a prediction for Saturday evening at Red Bull Arena?
Yeah, I'll say like it's gonna be probably a mixed bag of like rotated players for Columbus. It's not gonna be easy even with the rotated players. So I'll say they get a 2-1 win.
I'm going to call it a 1-1 draw, and New York finishes their home schedule with more draws than any other result. When we're back on Seeing Red, our special interview guest, and then emails after that. So keep it here. Back on Seeing Red, the New York Soccer Roundup. A little different this week as we're talking with Lewis Morgan at the Red Bulls training facility. Lewis, you've had a really busy week this week. Tell us a little bit about it.
Yeah, really busy. Just landed yesterday. Obviously had the national team games, which is always an honour. Played Tuesday night against Portugal most recently.
23 minutes, I saw.
Yeah, managed to come on. Really good result for the squad as well. Really important point for us. So happy to be back though. All eyes on Saturday now.
It's been an interesting journey with you and Scotland this year. Obviously, the challenge of going back and forth. What is that like for you, leaving the squad, trying to get integrated quickly with Scotland and the team, getting some minutes as you kind of work into the program?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, like I just touched on, it's a massive honour whenever you get the call up. So all the other stuff kind of goes out the window. It's a privilege to go there, and obviously there's challenges in terms of logistically how far away I am from the squad, and it usually means that I miss games here. And with Red Bull, fortunately, this last week I didn't miss anything. So, yeah, I mean, it's good challenges to have. I mean, I would rather have those challenges than not be involved. So, yeah, been really exciting.
You're one of the finalists this year for Comeback Player of the Year. You've put in a ton of work. 2023 was a really challenging year for you. You've slotted right back into the squad this year, leading the team in goals. Talk a little bit about the journey that you've had in terms of what it's meant to you to get back and to be recognized for that contribution.
Yeah, obviously being recognised whenever is always nice on an individual level. I think any player that gets nominated for it, I'm sure every single person's went through trials, tribulations. I mean, I was there myself, so I sympathise with all those guys that have been nominated. It's probably not the award you want to be nominated
right,
for,
right.
But yeah, obviously I can only really speak on myself. Had a really difficult year last year. Had a really, really severe hip injury, and then wasn't really given that optimistic a return in terms of return to performance. So had an amazing surgeon, Dr. Larson, and then obviously amazing team here, physios and Namosho and Zach Cogan looked after me all the off season. We were in here 6 a.m. every morning. We were here all through winter, no time off at all, no Christmas, no nothing, and just trying to get back from what was a really bad injury. I think Zach said it before. There was maybe only a 25% or so chance to return to performance level. So I always had that in the back of my mind that try to be one of those 25%. So yeah, I'm sure, like I say, anyone who is on that list and has done well, like I now have a newfound recognition for what it takes to come back from long-term injury. So I sympathise with all those guys and happy to see everyone on that list that's been nominated is now back playing.
For sure. You guys have an interesting assignment this week. Columbus has nothing to play for. They obviously want to kind of get in a good place for the postseason. You guys have an opportunity to move up, possibly play Cincinnati, a team that you guys have performed very well against this year. What's gone into the thinking around Saturday's match?
They're all massive. All the games are big, and I think a team like Columbus that operates on the level they operate are going to be looking to try and win the game as well, especially this close to playoffs. Like, I think sometimes maybe on the outside you can think that teams are maybe going to take their foot off the gas, they don't have much to play for, but it's very hard in football to turn momentum around, and the last thing a team wants is to lose the first game before the playoffs, regardless if they're rested players or not. So we know we're going to get a fully motivated Columbus team that are coming here to win, and we have that fire in us as well, that we want to win this game regardless of who it means we're going to play in the playoffs, just for ourselves to win and go into the playoffs with a good feeling. We obviously got a really good result in Toronto. The short week made it a bit difficult in Atlanta, but we want to go into the playoffs with a win, and these are the type of teams we're going to need to beat in the playoffs. So
Columbus really showed you guys earlier this year when you were trying to kind of figuring out what kind of team you were. They showed you what kind of team they were. Clearly among the class of the league. They hold MLS Cup, they hold Leagues Cup, same time, made it to the CCL final. What kind of a measuring stick are you looking forward to Saturday to kind of show them the quality that you have, with the notion that you guys could be playing these guys 4 times in a row, in theory?
Yeah, I mean, for me, there's no inferiority complex, but at the same time, you've got to recognise, and that's a club that are performing at the level that we want to get to and that we are striving to get to. There's no harm in saying that and looking at them and admiring what they're doing. I think they've got a great coach and a great squad, but you always get tests. I've just played against Portugal during the week where no one thinks that you're probably going to get anything, so I can reflect on that, and I know that going into this game we're nowhere near as big underdogs as maybe Scotland are against Portugal, so it's an exciting time, it's an exciting challenge. They played very well against us away from home, probably the toughest game we'd had this year, and I think as a football player you need to embrace that and look forward to the challenge of trying to put that right. Any team in this league can beat any other team in this league. I've absolutely no doubt about that. It's been proven so many times, and we're going against a really top side this weekend, and I'm excited for it.
Yeah, a real opportunity to send a message to them, especially if you do wind up seeing them starting next week when it really, really counts. What does it mean, lastly, for you to have kind of a full squad around you, having ML back for the last couple of games? Obviously, I think after 2 weeks off, this team is probably as healthy as it's been since the early days of the season when you guys were playing so well. What does it mean to have kind of everyone back and ready to go?
I mean, of course, you always want to have as many players at your disposal as you can, and it's a luxury we've not really had this year. So if you could choose one time of the year to have that, it's probably now, coming into the business end of the season, to have everyone back. We're going to be missing Dylan for this game.
Right.
For the playoffs, he should be obviously good to go, and then we're basically at full strength, so it's exciting for the group, it's exciting for the players to know that we've got a full squad of guys there and people coming off the bench to make an impact as well. So competitions is also a good thing in football, so we've got probably a squad of 20-25 guys in there who are wanting to play that first playoff game, and to do that we all need to put on good performances this weekend.
When you look back, it's the end of another season. While there's certainly more to go, what has this journey been like for you this season? Understanding getting back to full fitness, you've been contributing as you had back in 2022. What's the story of this season for you?
Yeah, I think just I missed so much of last year. You know what I mean? I didn't even have a season. So it was just sort of making up for lost time and try to enjoy every single second I had on the pitch, regardless of all the adversities that football brings. So I've got not a newfound love for the game, but just I was probably taking my health and football for granted for a little bit there, and now I've managed to get back on the pitch. I'm enjoying every second, and I'm really, really excited for the playoffs. It's what we play all year for, is to qualify for these. So, yeah, looking forward to them now.
If it is Cincinnati for the third straight year facing them, what would that mean for you?
For me, it's going to be the same. The occasion, regardless who we're playing, is going to be amazing. If it's Cincinnati, all the past games go out the window. Especially when you're looking at playoff format. Of course, we've done well against them. They've also done well against us, though. So,
Right.
I think no matter who we play, the games are going to be tough. I don't personally have a preference who we play, to be honest. The fact of the matter is, you need to beat whoever's in front of you if you want to go all the way, so it doesn't matter who you play and when you play them. So I'm just looking for this Saturday, get a good result, good win for the team, hopefully, and then we go into the playoffs with confidence. Let's see who we're playing.
Awesome. Lewis Morgan wears number 9 for the New York Red Bulls. Lewis, thanks for joining.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
We are back at Seeing Red, the New York Soccer Roundup. You can write the show always at seeingredny@gmail.com. These emails, we did not get any emails over the international break. Noah Ayla scored an own goal for the Sweden U21s during this break.
Well,
He's got a few of those. It happens.
he's trying.
He's trying. So here is, first of our emails, Paul Fleck, who wrote this match ahead of the Toronto match, so this is a little bit in the review. Paul says, anyway, I know the refrain all season since 2020 is we don't have a true goal-scoring striker, but for the last month and a half, the organization in the defending third has been the most concerning. We have zero answers on dealing with opponents pushing two strikers onto the center backs. It started with Philly when the match with the Union pushed two players high and exposed the space in front of the center backs to early goals. It continued against Chicago, who created overloads or even number situations deep against the center backs, and then the NYCFC debacle, where they just simply pressed them into mistakes, especially without Sean Nealis. But even when he was in, there seems to be very little understanding between any two center backs and whoever's holding the sixes in the game are on how to handle that space in between the lines. With Forsberg out, the shape of the team changed, but the assumption would be that means that we're creating a better defensive setup through the midfield, or not the worst. The last time I looked to be working was the Cincy game, where Donkor was by himself in the hole, starting deep, stepping into breakup plays, and starting building up in front of the center backs. This goes without saying that the individual mistakes that have been plaguing those positions, but am I crazy? Were we better with a single deep-lying six? What do you think? Always keep up the good work. Much love to Joe. Dan, I think a lot of it can be traced back to the lack of Amaya in the lineup, but I'm curious of what your thoughts are.
Yeah, it's weird because, even if Amaya's not there, he wasn't playing, in between the center backs. That's always been Edelman. So it's been weird this year because they've been playing together for almost 3 years now. So the chemistry seems just a bit off for whatever reason. And it showed in that NYC game, with those two mistakes. I don't know what to pinpoint that on, but maybe it's Amaya not being there. But I feel like even when he left, Donkor took that spot over, and they were playing fine. But the second third of the season has been, a bit weird defensively. I don't know what to pinpoint that on. It's just, nobody's been playing up to their potential, I would say.
Yeah,
probably. Maybe that's just them being complacent, as Dylan Neal said, and they haven't been laser focused at the back. But yeah, it's been odd to watch this defense these past month or two.
Yeah, I agree. I think, Donkor was shining. Keep in mind, he's a teenager, right? Mm-hmm. He's 19 years old, and he definitely was shining playing in that role. And we've talked about it previously. I think Edelman is a terrific player. Asking him to be the destroyer all the time, a la Dax McCarty, isn't really what he does. He's more of a disruptor as plays move for me from side to side, that he helps close down a side and isn't necessarily going to sit in the center of the field as much. I agree with Paul that, listen, you've had these three center backs that have been rotating this season, right? Nealis has been out a bit, Reyes has been out a bit, and Ayla has been out a bit with international absences. And so you would think, as you said, that Nealis and Reyes, who have been playing together for a number of years now, would certainly clean stuff up. I think that Reyes has taken a step back a little bit this season, and when I don't think he's the first choice when both Nealis and Ayla are present and healthy. And maybe that lack of playing time, first team playing time, has gotten into his head a little bit. It's not all to blame on him. Absolutely. I just think if teams are going to exploit that, it does mean that one of the sixes, and perhaps Carballo is just a little more focused up the field, and maybe Edelman's not up to the task. I'm not sure, but nevertheless, a good question. Any more thoughts, Dan?
Yeah, maybe I don't like. Maybe you adjust. Maybe look at maybe going to three at the back. Like maybe try three at the back this game against Columbus, especially with no right back, because I don't know who you're going to play at right back. I don't want to put Cameron Harper back there. No offense to Cameron Harper, but he's more suited to play up the field. So, maybe if you have all three center backs, you try them out and see how they look. Because I don't think we've played three at the back much this year. I think we've done that maybe once or twice for a full 90. And maybe try that out. Give Columbus a different look. See how all three of them play on the field together for a full 90. The only problem is if one gets injured, you have Aiden O'Connor as the backup. But
going into the playoffs.
But if one gets injured, then you just say, all right, we're going back to four at the back. But maybe just try something else out with Columbus and how they play. So
maybe Saturday is the perfect time to experiment when your opponent doesn't need to result at all.
Yep, exactly.
Thank you, Paul, for your note. Here's Joshua Guerra. This is a little long. Bear with. Mark and Joe et al. I wrote this before the win in Toronto, which was cathartic. Toronto is a bad team, and Forsberg's involvement made a huge difference. I'm still wondering about the observations below. Dejected self-consolation. It's just a game. Our prize is the good humor and conversation that you bring us season after season. For what it's worth, it's been enough for me, low these 13 years. And I think there are supporters of the team who still don't know that there is actually such a prize. How do they bear it? Very, 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 very nice, Josh. I appreciate that. I think individual mistakes in the opening minutes of the game Saturday were accentuating to some extent for much of what followed the team's performance that night. Nevertheless, it wasn't good enough and compelled me to leave the stadium early for the first time ever. Against NYCFC on Saturday, the team could not figure out how to play through the midfield over and over and over. The ball was recycled into wide areas and ultimately back to Reyes and Ayla. Way too often individuals simply played the way they were facing, often with just one or two touches. Nobody seemed willing to receive it, turn with it, and figure out how to combine and find a teammate in a more advanced position. It's something that I've noticed throughout the season. It's really begun to frustrate me. To be fair, among the young players, Donkor and Youngar seem to do more naturally inclined to try this. I'm fortunate to occasionally photograph games, and even from that perspective down on the pitch, I'm astonished by how often our players simply played the ball back in the direction it came from without even looking over their shoulders. I know the team wants to play in transition, but I don't understand why individuals don't seem or willing or able to mix it up when. So ultimately, I'm wondering about the coaching of this team, reflecting the extent which we have felt like I can see players actually develop and improve. We've heard from Schwartz what his mandate is, but at this point, I don't think I understand what it means for Schwartz or the organization or Red Bull Global to develop young players. For instance, if this were a team of 15-year-olds and I was the coach, it'd be a big problem to me that my players seem unwilling or unable to put their foot on the ball and try to play with it. Very few of them seem to want the ball or seem eager to solve problems on the field with the ball at their feet. Surely the Red Bull identity system doesn't preclude these skills from developing in players. Am I right? Do you feel that you are simply seeing this any clearer than I am? Is this dynamic indicative or a deeper failure or simply a lack of confidence? Love and gratitude to all of you. That's Joshua Guerra. Josh, that's fantastic. That's a fantastic, insightful piece of writing. Dan, any thoughts?
Yeah. First, I'll take a stab at players trying to take the ball through the middle of the field, and I think that's what happens when you're playing a 4-2-2, and you have some of your more creative players playing wide tens instead of playing in the middle. Like where Forsberg's playing, he's playing out wide left, and sometimes he'll try to come into the middle, but for the most part, he's playing out wide. And right now, you'd have like Carballo or Edelman come in the middle, or you have another striker dropping into the middle. And I think there's just not enough players for Red Bull to connect into the middle. Sometimes you'll see Morgan drop in sometimes, but when you only have one player in the middle and then you're trying to connect with other players out wide, it gets hard. It gets hard. So I've always wondered if they would ever change back to maybe a 4-2-3-1 and play Forsberg in the middle and you put Morgan out wide and try that out. But I don't know. I don't think they have the personnel to do that, especially if you're only going to run Van Zier at striker by himself. So maybe that's just a personnel problem that they have to go out wide all the time. And then to his last point, I think it's probably just a confidence on the ball. As we've gone through the season, I've seen more and more that like players like JMI or Dylan Nealis on the other side, when they receive the ball from a center back, instead of going forward with the open space, because there's open space there, they'll just pass it to Edelman, Carballo, or back to the center back, and it gets a bit frustrating, especially like where we sit. We see Schwartz like say, "Yo, come on, let's go up, let's go," and then when they pass the ball back, he's like, "Oh my God, here we go again." It's like sometimes there's like unnecessary passes going backward. Like you'll see like Edelman receive the ball in the middle of the field and he one times it back to Cornell, and you're like, what are we doing? Why are we going back all the way? Like now we just have to reset. So I don't know. Maybe it is a confidence thing probably, and they're receiving too much pressure in these positions in game. So when they get back into these positions, they just don't want to make a mistake and cost themselves the goal, especially with how the offense has been playing this year. Because if you give up one or two goals for most of the season, that's been enough to beat Red Bull.
Yeah.
Right? So it's probably just that they don't want to make a mistake. And you saw they make two mistakes in the NYC game and the game's over basically. So
yeah, and punished both times. Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, I like that. In a world, I think, as you correctly said, Dan, in a world where you're more comfortable having the ball and less kind of fanatic car crash ball every time you get it. I mean, I would love also for this team to probe the center of the defense more often, because we've seen a number of times over the last number of games the attack look like recycle from side to side, almost like a basketball team pushing it around the arc, looking for a way in without a big man to post up. And New York's forwards are not those guys right now. I mean, no offense to Corey Burke, who hasn't seen the field a whole lot of late, but like New York doesn't have that. So I agree, the notion of turning, facing, and seeing what they can make happen. I think for New York, they are more comfortable having the ball, especially around the back. I don't think it's necessarily a question of individuals maybe not being taught to do that, especially as Dan said, there's frustration from Schwartz when that doesn't happen. We've talked long and hard about JMI not having to do as much into the attacking flow, considering the talent ahead of him that was really missing last year. And I use attacking talent with some kid gloves due to the challenges that some players have had converting chances. But I think you definitely want to see more of that, more fullbacks getting into the attack, although I would imagine it would be primarily from the left, given we have no idea who's playing that role. I think it will be Cam Harper on Saturday night. I think putting Yengar ahead of him may be the right move, just to make sure, Harper can absolutely cover. I mean, he's not a starting defender, but in a pinch, he can get the job done, although against a quality team like Columbus, who knows? But yeah, I will tell you at the youth level, there's less of that. There's less of passing back. And I think there is something to be said about fear of making a mistake, given how challenged the team is in terms of generating and converting scoring opportunities, right? Because I think everyone knows, you make a bad mistake, your team's down 1-0, either early at home, wherever, and now it's such a huge lift to get 3 points. And they haven't gotten them in a really long time. But nevertheless, Josh, thank you for your well-reasoned email. And here's Charles Atkinson with 2 questions. One, will Carballo be here next year, or is he another revolving door loan like Cabeza and Fletcher? He seems to be getting more of a push from the team, but honestly haven't performed yet. 2, can you break down what you think happened with JJ Mina and why that transfer failed so badly? Why is our transfer luck so bad of late? I guess that's 3. So I will answer 1. Carballo is signed through the summer of next year on loan. Whether or not he remains here remains to be seen. I think it is not necessarily fair to expect after 5 or 6 games that he's going to be a main cog for this season, but with a full preseason ahead of him, and we know the MLS offseason is the shortest offseason in sports, it really won't be too long before they're thinking about 2025, regardless of what happens on Saturday or what happens in the first round of the playoffs. But I would like to think that he imprints more of himself on the team as he is a little more of a veteran, and we'll see. Can you break down what you think happened with Mina and when the transfer failed so badly? Dan, do you have anything to add here?
Yeah. When they first signed him, I think they really did think that he could be that next fullback that comes through the Red Bull system, and they sell him on. But when the signing originally happened, I reached out to a friend that actually supports the team he came from. And he basically said that he's just speed. He's not that good. And what did we see? He's just speed, and he's not that good. And it's unfortunate that we didn't see scouting didn't see this, but at least they kind of admitted to their mistake, offloaded him. He's on loan, but the Portuguese team that they loan him out to has a purchase option. So I believe the purchase option is like $250,000, which is, still less than what they bought him for, but at least they kind of say, all right, we messed up. We'll see what we can get back from. And I think it's just in certain parts of scouting in their building, especially down in South America right now, it hasn't been the best. You brought up Cabeza, JJ Mina, some of these guys just aren't good enough to play in MLS right away. And maybe they're looking for that gem that other, clubs around the world have been doing, scouting South America, especially like a Brighton in the Premier League. But for whatever reason, they're just not finding the right, talents. They're probably just not willing to spend up to the money that they would need to buy those type of talents. And, it's unfortunate that a lot of these transfers lately have been misses. But I think it's just a scouting issue right now. We talk about Doncourt. The scouting in Africa has been pretty good for Red Bull recently.
Yep.
We have Mohamed Sofu, who just got signed to the first team.
Yep.
Ronald Doncourt was a first team signing last year, and
Sirwada.
Sirwada as well. Kasule. Red Bull all around the world has been kind of hitting from their Africa pipeline. So I'm not surprised there. But I think in certain portions of the world, the scouting for at least New York Red Bull needs to improve. And, maybe Jurgen Klopp can help out with that because, that's been an issue. I think it's just the scouting being the issue, and maybe, spend for a higher tier of prospect.
Well, I think that goes to the core of it. I mean, if you're talking about why my South American teenager hits and your South American teenager misses, or the other way around, there are so many different factors that go into whether someone is able to make the jump to a new country and a new culture as a teenager, and to be able to be comfortable enough to have their skills shine through and develop correctly. I mean, imagine being 17, 18, 19 years old.
Not knowing the language,
picking up and moving from, your hometown in South America to the suburbs of New Jersey, and working into a situation where you have to have a car. There's like, you have to, you're probably living 3 or 4 guys to an apartment. You're learning the language, you're getting the coaching, and there's pressure on you to develop and play quickly, because if you don't show it in a year to 18 months, you're going back home, or you're on some odyssey. Anatole Bong, anyone you're somewhere else in the football world. And this is the hundreds and hundreds of young players all around the world struggle with the international transfer every year. And you can make the argument, the US, the Red Bulls have really struggled here. And again, I'd put you to Donkor, as Dan rightly pointed out. He's absolutely hit. I mean, he's hit. He's a talented kid. I don't know if he's here in 2 or 3 years.
No.
Right. And, you look at Christian Cáceres. He hit.
Yep.
He absolutely hit. He came into New York as a young 20-year-old, I believe, and he leveled up, and he was sold to Toulouse for millions of dollars. Like, it's very easy to be like, that guy didn't work out, our scouting stinks. Wiki Carmona has been injured for most of this year, and he's had a very up and down career while he's been in Harrison, but he came to New York as a 17-year-old. And he's still working through it and figuring it out. And I think he has shown flashes of brilliance, and I think he can absolutely make it as a pro. So the point I'm making, Charles, and thank you so much for your note, is it's everywhere in the world, it's hit or miss. And you can make the argument that New York has missed, but they've also hit, and we have to give them credit for that.
Yeah.
Right? We've come to an end of a fantastic Seeing Red, episode 592, season 15's Decision Day preview. That is absolutely bonkers. Dan, the birthday boy, calls Saturday's match a
2-1 win.
I'm going to call it a 1-1 draw. Joe Goldstein, we wish you well. We hope that you are doing well, and we're thinking about you every day. Thank you so much for watching. We will be back with our playoff preview. Woohoo! Next week. Let's go. Let's go, Mets. Good night, everyone. Bye-bye.
Let's go, Mets.